In this video, we are doing a complete scientific breakdown of 17 of the most terrifying monsters from the Resident Evil franchise. We're analyzing each creature using 3 rigorous criteria: deadliness, resilience, and scientific realism. Every monster receives a score from 1 to 10 in each category, then gets placed in tiers from S, scientifically sound nightmares, down to F, biological impossibilities. We're exploring these horrors as they come, from botanical disasters that barely function to biomechanical terrors that could theoretically stalk you tonight. Leave your like, subscribe, and let's get into it. The liquor from Resident Evil 2 is where the franchise gets genuinely terrifying from a scientific perspective. That exposed brain is actually a cooling system for enhanced neural processing, but the real weapon is that 6-foot tongue that punches through skulls like a biological spear. For deadliness, we're giving this an 8 out of 10. Real chameleons project tongues at over 500 meters per second squared, faster than most bullets leave the barrel. Scale that up with enhanced muscle density, and you've got a biological railgun. The wall crawling ability adds another lethal dimension. Geckos use van der Waals forces through millions of microscopic hairs called CT, and a human-sized creature would need 40% of its body surface covered in these adhesive structures. Resilience scores a 7 out of 10. The exposed musculature provides superior heat dissipation and faster healing since damaged tissue can be replaced rapidly without skin barriers. However, the lack of protective covering makes it susceptible to infection and environmental hazards. Here's the uncomfortable part. Scientific realism scores 7 out of 10, making this genuinely plausible. The tongue mechanism exists in nature, just scaled up. The adhesive system has millions of years of gecko evolution behind it. Enhanced brain cooling has parallels in elephants. The main hurdle is energy management, 15,000 calories daily, but viral modifications to metabolism could solve this. The liquor lands in B tier as our first monster that could theoretically exist with the right genetic modifications. Plant 42 from the original Resident Evil is an oversized Venus flytrap that somehow learns to walk. Those massive jaws could theoretically crush a human, but here's the problem. Real Venus flytraps take 10 to 20 seconds to fully close. Deadliness gets a 4 out of 10 because that's catastrophically slow for any predator. You'd have plenty of time to escape unless you're particularly committed to becoming fertilizer. Compare that to a crocodile, which can snap its jaws shut in a fraction of a second. Plants are surprisingly tough organisms, giving resilience a 6 out of 10. Some species can survive extreme damage to their root systems, and many can regenerate from fragments. Those massive leaves would collapse under their own weight without internal structure supports that simply don't exist in plant biology. Scientific realism gets a brutal 2 out of 10. Plants lack neural networks of complex movement coordination. They don't have muscles, tendons, or centralized nervous systems required for predatory behavior. The energy requirements for rapid locomotion would be impossible to meet through photosynthesis alone. Even with the mansion's windows providing sunlight, the surface area of leaves couldn't capture enough energy to power walking and attacking. The most charitable explanation would be T-virus creating hybrid animal-plant cells, but that would require rewriting fundamental cellular biology. Plant 42 lands firmly in F tier as pure fantasy that ignores how life actually works. Nemesis from Resident Evil 3 represents the perfect fusion of human intelligence and biological enhancement. This isn't just a mindless monster, it's an engineered predator with mission parameters, tactical reasoning, and adaptive problem solving. Deadliness scores a 9 out of 10. Nemesis combines human intelligence with superhuman strength and operates firearms while maintaining predatory instincts. Most bioweapons are either smart or strong. Nemesis is both. When you escape through a window, it follows. Lock a door, it smashes through. Use the same route twice, it anticipates and cuts you off. Real parasites like Toxoplasma gondii can modify host behavior while preserving motor functions. The fungus Ophiocordyceps takes over ant brains while still allowing complex locomotion. Scale that up with targeted genetic modification, and you get controlled enhancement rather than mindless mutation. The Ne-alpha parasite preserves and enhances cognitive function rather than destroying it. Resilience gets an 8 out of 10. The combination of enhanced healing and tactical intelligence makes Nemesis extremely difficult to neutralize. It can retreat when overwhelmed, regroup, and return with adapted strategies. The coat and equipment suggest it retains enough human reasoning to use protective gear effectively. Now for the uncomfortable part. Scientific Realism scores an 8 out of 10, making this disturbingly plausible. We already have parasites that modify behavior, viruses that enhance cellular function, and control mutation in gene therapy. The main challenge is maintaining the balance between enhancement and destruction. With the right delivery system and genetic targeting, Nemesis-level enhancement enters theoretical possibility. That's what makes it A-tier nightmare fuel. It could theoretically exist within our lifetimes. The molded from Resident Evil 7 represent a fascinating departure from viral bioweapons. These creatures are fungal colonies given humanoid form through mold psychic influence, walking mushrooms sculpted into nightmares. Deadliest scores a 7 out of 10 through unpredictability and environmental advantage. Those blade-like appendages slice through flesh easily, but the real threat is how they burst from walls, floors, and ceilings. The four-legged variants move with disturbing speed, galloping like predatory animals despite lacking true skeletal structure. Fungi already exhibits some of these properties, giving resilience an 8 out of 10. The largest living organism on Earth is a honey fungus in Oregon, spanning 2,385 acres, essentially a single networked entity. Fungi grow into any shape, rapidly reproduce through spores, and some species, like cordyceps, already hijack animal biology. Scientific Realism scores a 6 out of 10. The main hurdle is rapid formation and coordination. Real fungi grow over days or weeks, not minutes. The molded form in minutes and move with purpose, suggesting the mold provides centralized intelligence that bypasses normal fungal growth limitations. The energy requirements would be enormous, but if the mold can break down any organic matter for nutrients, which real fungi absolutely can, it becomes more plausible. The glowing weak points are likely colony nexuses, where the mold's psychic influence concentrates. The molded land in B tier, with sound basic biology pushed past current limits. Verdugo from Resident Evil 4 is the insectoid nightmare that almost works scientifically. Deadliest gets a 7 out of 10. Those razor-sharp claws slice through metal doors and the speed is genuinely terrifying. Real mantis shrimp can punch with the force of a .22 caliber bullet, accelerating their appendages at 10,000 times gravity. Scale up arthropod striking power with enhanced musculature, and you get devastating attacks that could shear through bone and body armor. The problem is precision. Verdugo swipes wildly rather than targeting vital organs. Resilience scores an 8 out of 10, and this is where arthropod biology shines. That chitinous exoskeleton is pound for pound stronger than steel. Lobster shells withstand pressure that would crush vertebrae bones. Some beetle shells can support 39,000 times their body weight. However, joints remain vulnerable and arthropods must molt to grow, creating extended periods of complete defenselessness. Here's where everything collapses. Scientific Realism gets a 4 out of 10. The fatal flaw is oxygen delivery. Insects use spiracles and tracheal tubes, passive gas exchange that works beautifully at small scales, but fails catastrophically when enlarged. Verdugo lands in D tier. Everything else works, but fundamental physics kills it. Albert Wesker from Resident Evil 5 is where the franchise abandons biology and embraces superhero physics. This isn't enhancement, it's reality-breaking power. Deadliest gets a perfect 10 out of 10. Wesker moves faster than the human eye can track, punches through steel like tissue paper, catches rockets mid-flight. He doesn't fight, he violates the laws of physics while doing it. Real human muscle fibers produce about 23 pounds of force per square inch. Elite powerlifters max out at around 1,000 pounds on bench press. Wesker casually tosses cars like basketballs, suggesting force generation at least 50 times beyond human theoretical limits. The leverage alone would shatter a skeleton. The speed is even more problematic. Moving faster than perception requires acceleration that would liquefy internal organs. The human body can survive about 5 to 6 Gs briefly. Wesker's acceleration appears to be 20 to 30 Gs or higher. Resilience scores a 9 out of 10. The mechanisms defy known biology. To heal that fast, his cells would divide at rates that should trigger cancer and produce waste heat that would cook him from the inside. Scientific Realism gets a 3 out of 10. The basic concept of viral enhancement has precedent, but Wesker goes so far beyond biological possibility, he's essentially a superhero. He lands in B tier only because fundamental viral enhancement exists, but the execution is pure fantasy. The Gravedigger from Resident Evil 3 is what you get when you take a centipede and forget everything about how arthropods actually work. Real centipedes are ambush hunters that rely on speed and surprise, hiding in tight spaces and darting out to grab prey smaller than themselves. Deadliness gets a 5 out of 10. Those mandibles would pack serious crushing power. Scaling up centipede jaws could generate bite forces measured in tons. The problem is catching anything. At this size, the Gravedigger would be visible from blocks away. Its movement would shake the ground like an earthquake, and prey would have ample time to escape before the creature even got close. Resilience scores a 7 out of 10. Arthropods are incredibly durable, and their segmented bodies can survive losing multiple sections. Some centipedes can regenerate lost limbs. The exoskeleton would provide excellent protection against small arms fire. Each segment acts as an independent armor plate, distributing impacts across the structure. But Scientific Realism gets a brutal 3 out of 10. The Gravedigger dies from the same problem as Verdugo: oxygen delivery. The tracheal system doesn't scale up. At this size, the creature would suffocate in minutes. The central portions of its body would be oxygen-starved, causing tissue death and system failure. Then there's the tunneling problem. Burrowing through concrete and bedrock would require either acid production on an industrial scale or crushing force that would destroy the creature's own body. The Gravedigger lands in F tier as biological impossibility with scary mandibles. The Regenerator from Resident Evil 4 is where Resident Evil's science becomes uncomfortably plausible. Those extending arms create surprising reach through pneumonic or hydraulic muscle systems, and that crushing could snap bones with pressure exceeding 1000 psi. Deadliness scores a 6 out of 10. The real threat isn't any single attack, it's persistence. You can't kill what keeps healing faster than you can damage it. Slow movement and predictable patterns limit immediate lethality, but in any sustained encounter, the Regenerator has infinite staying power while you have finite ammunition and stamina. Resilience gets a 9 out of 10. And this is where things get scientifically fascinating. Real animals demonstrate regeneration approaching this level. Axolotls regenerate entire limbs complete with bones, muscles, nerves, and blood vessels. Starfish regrow from fragments. Planarian flatworms can regenerate their entire head, including brain tissue, in about 2 weeks. The key to the Regenerator is those parasitic organisms visible under thermal imaging. Scientific Realism scores a 6 out of 10. The energy requirements are massive, but not impossible if the parasites can convert any organic matter into raw materials through super efficient digestion. The real biological hurdle is maintaining consciousness during major regeneration events. Regrowing a head should reset memory and personality, but somehow the Regenerator maintains continuity. Perhaps the parasites store neural patterns like backup files. The Regenerator lands in C tier, biologically ambitious with only a few asterisks, representing theoretical possibility with current and near-future biotechnology. Jack Baker from Resident Evil 7 represents what happens when the mold fully integrates with a human host over years of exposure. Unlike the molded, Jack retains his human consciousness, warped by Evelyn's psychic influence, but fundamentally still himself underneath. Deadliness scores an 8 out of 10, and it's deceptive. In his base form, Jack seems just abnormally strong. Then you blow off his head with a shotgun, and he grows it back in seconds while monologuing about family dinner. His mutated forms demonstrate true body horror, grotesque masses of flesh and fungal growth that defy human anatomy while maintaining locomotive function. Resilience gets a 9 out of 10. The mold rebuilds him each time, faster and more aggressive. This aligns with real fungal behavior. Mycelia networks can survive extreme damage and regrow from fragments. Some fungi produce fruiting bodies that are just temporary structures. The real organism is the underground network that persists indefinitely. Scientific Realism scores a 5 out of 10. What makes Jack interesting is symbiosis taken to an extreme. The mold has integrated so thoroughly that he's neither fully human nor fully fungal. He's a hybrid entity. Real symbiotic relationships like lichens produce remarkable results, surviving in environments neither organism could tolerate alone. The main implausibility is regeneration speed. Growing a new head in seconds would require energy outputs that would incinerate the body from waste heat. Jack lands in C tier because the fundamental concept of parasitic organism enhancing host durability has precedent even if execution pushes beyond current limits. Nosferatu from Resident Evil Code Veronica is Alfred Ashford's tragic final form, demonstrating how T. Veronica can go catastrophically wrong when the host rejects viral integration. This winged monstrosity represents biological ambition crashing into physical impossibility. Nosferatu lands firmly in F tier as biological fantasy that ignores aerodynamics, structural engineering, and biomechanics. Lisa Trevor from the Resident Evil remake is the ultimate testament to both human cruelty and biological possibility. After decades as Umbrella's test subject, her body has become a living repository for every viral enhancement they've deployed. Deadliest scores a 7 out of 10. Those claws tear through metal doors, suggesting enhanced bone density and muscle attachment points far beyond human norms. The complete inability to feel pain makes her incredibly dangerous. Pain is the body's warning system, and without it, Lisa fights at 100% capacity until complete structural failure. The psychological impact of fighting something unkillable adds another dimension to her lethality. Resilience achieves perfection, a 10 out of 10, the only perfect score we're giving. Lisa has survived rocket launchers, industrial acids, complete dismemberment, and having her body destroyed multiple times. Each time, she regenerates. The key is viral saturation. After decades of experimentation, her cells incorporated dozens of different viral strains, each providing different enhancement suits. Now, here's the uncomfortable part. Scientific Realism scores an 8 out of 10, making her the most scientifically plausible monster in the entire franchise. This level of regeneration has parallels in nature. Turritopsis doornii, the immortal jellyfish, can reverse its aging process and theoretically live forever. Tardigrades survive complete dehydration, lethal radiation, and the vacuum of space for decades. Planarian flatworms regenerate from tiny fragments. Lisa has essentially become a human planarian, maintaining stem cell populations in every tissue type. We're already using gene therapy and CRISPR for genetic modification. The main limitation is integration without rejection. Lisa represents the extraordinarily rare case where everything worked perfectly. She earns S-tier placement, proof that sometimes the most terrifying nightmares could actually exist. William Birkin's final transformation in Resident Evil 2 is a massive eyeball creature that embodies everything wrong with ignoring biological constraints. This represents G-virus mutation taken to its absolute extreme. Deadliest scores a 7 out of 10. The sheer size and those tentacle appendages could easily crush vehicles or impale multiple targets simultaneously. The apparent invulnerability means conventional weapons are nearly useless. The problem is mobility, making it a stationary threat you can easily walk around. The distributed biology suggests redundant systems, giving resilience an 8 out of 10. Damage one section and others compensate. The viral integration implies rapid healing. Multiple direct hits from heavy weapons barely slow it down, suggesting incredible damage resistance through sheer tissue mass. But Scientific Realism gets a catastrophic 1 out of 10. The central nervous system concentrated in that massive eye creates a single catastrophic failure point. Eyes are incredibly vulnerable, literally fluid-filled organs exposed to the environment. Making an eye the core of your biology is terrible evolutionary design. The energy requirements would be astronomical. Blue whales must eat about 4 tons of krill daily just to maintain body mass. Birkin Stage 5 appears sessile with no visible feeding mechanism. It would deplete energy reserves within hours and begin eating itself from inside. Most critically, there's no viable method for waste removal or circulation. Without these systems, it would poison itself with metabolic waste within hours. Birkin Stage 5 lands firmly in F tier as biological impossibility. Lady Alcina Dimitrescu from Resident Evil 8 became a cultural phenomenon, but beneath the imposing height lie interesting biological questions. Her base form stands nearly 9.5 feet tall, beyond human norms, but not outside biological possibility. Deadliest scores a 7 out of 10. The combination of size, strength, and those retractable claws creates a formidable predator. Real cats have retractable claws through specialized ligaments and sheaths. Muscle contraction pulls the claw forward into attack position. Scaling this to human-sized talons would require complete restructuring of human bones and addition of necessary muscular and ligament systems. Resilience in base form scores a 7 out of 10. She can take significant damage before going down, healing from injuries that would incapacitate normal humans. The Kadu parasite provides enhanced regeneration, though not at Regenerator levels. Her mutated dragon form pushes deadliness higher, but doesn't improve durability. Scientific Realism scores a 5 out of 10. What's interesting is that her base condition represents long-term viral symbiosis. The Kadu has integrated over decades, providing enhanced strength, regeneration, and age retardation. The height is actually the most plausible aspect. Gigantism in humans is caused by excess growth hormone. The catastrophic mutated form kills scientific credibility. Wings that can't support flight, massive body mass increase with no energy source, violating conservation of mass. Lady Dimitrescu lands in C tier with a partially plausible base form undermined by fantasy mutation. Mr. X from Resident Evil 2 represents Umbrella's production model Tyrant, mass-producible super soldiers with enhanced strength, durability, and intelligence sufficient to follow complex orders. Deadliness scores an 8 out of 10. The combination of superhuman strength and complete emotional suppression creates a perfect predator. No fear, no pain, no mercy, just efficient termination of targets. The ability to punch through concrete walls isn't just intimidating, it's tactically devastating. Why use doors when you can create your own entrances? The force required to shatter reinforced concrete would be enormous, requiring impossibly dense bones or subdermal reinforcement. Resilience gets a 9 out of 10. The gray skin suggests enhanced collagen production and possibly subdermal armor plating. Some real animals like pangolins have keratin scales that can deflect bullets. Mr. X tanks rocket launcher hits and keeps walking. While the explosions damage it, the rate of recovery suggests enhanced healing combined with incredible structural durability. The Tyrant series was designed to be mass-produced, meaning enhancements can't be too exotic. Scientific Realism scores a 6 out of 10, resting on pharmaceutical precedents. PCP can give users seemingly superhuman strength and pain tolerance through removal of psychological limiters. The main issue is maintaining higher brain function while suppressing emotional responses. You need intelligence for complex tasks, but not self-preservation instincts that would interfere with the mission. With precise viral modification targeting specific brain regions, you might achieve the Mr. X profile. The rapid healing is the main sticking point. That requires energy inputs that should leave it constantly consuming calories. Mr. X lands in the C tier for being biologically ambitious, but pushing limits past comfort zones. The Iron Maiden from Resident Evil 4 is the Regenerator's nightmare evolution. Same regenerative capabilities, but now every surface is a weapon. Deadliness jumps to 8 out of 10 because those spikes have extreme range. They extend up to 15 feet instantly, turning safe distance into impalement zone. Real porcupine quills have backward-facing barbs with thousands of microscopic scales that dig into tissue. Scale that up to sword-length spikes, and you've got penetrating weapons that pierce Kevlar, lodge deep in tissue, and potentially drag victims closer as they retract. The spike coverage is comprehensive, attack from any angle, and risk impalement. Resilience maintains that impressive 9 out of 10 from the base Regenerator. Same regenerative parasites, same rapid healing, but now with built-in defensive armor. Those spikes aren't just weapons, they're a protective barrier, making grappling impossible and forcing attackers to maintain distance. Scientific Realism drops to 5 out of 10. The Iron Maiden would need to completely restructure its skeletal system to accommodate dozens of spike deployment systems throughout its body. Each spike requires a storage chamber, anchor point strong enough to resist rapid extension forces, dedicated muscles or hydraulic systems, blood vessels routing that avoid spike paths, and nerve networks coordinating simultaneous multi-spike attacks. The energy cost would be staggering. Despite significant engineering challenges, the core regenerative biology remains sound, keeping the Iron Maiden in C tier as biologically ambitious, but theoretically possible with advanced bioengineering. Uroboros from Resident Evil 5 represents Albert Wesker's vision of forced human evolution, a black, writhing mass of tentacles that consumes and converts all organic matter into more of itself. This is where the franchise completely abandoned science. Deadliness scores a 9 out of 10 for pure destructive potential. It can consume entire ecosystems, converting all biomass into additional Uroboros tissue. The tentacles crush vehicles and slice through reinforced structures. The adaptive nature means it gets stronger with every organism absorbed. The only thing preventing a perfect score is the slow initial spread rate, though given time it becomes an extinction level threat. Resilience achieves absolute perfection, 10 out of 10. Uroboros is essentially immortal. Destroy part of it, and it regenerates. Separate pieces survive independently and eventually reunite. It adapts to damage, developing resistance to whatever hurt it. Hit it with fire, the next generation becomes heat resistant. This is biological perfection taken to its logical extreme. But scientific realism gets a catastrophic 1 out of 10. The thermodynamic violations are extreme. Converting organic matter at observed speeds would require energy inputs that don't exist. Real metabolism converts only about 10% of consumed energy into biomass growth. Uroboros appears to achieve near 100% conversion efficiency, violating thermodynamics. The rapid adaptation is equally impossible. Evolution requires generations. Uroboros evolves resistance in real time, suggesting either conscious genetic engineering or precognitive mutation. Uroboros gets F tier for scientific impossibility, while earning S tier for pure nightmare fuel. It's the most dangerous and least plausible monster in the franchise. Sturm from Resident Evil 8 is Heisenberg's most disturbing creation, a corpse with its head replaced by a massive aircraft propeller engine. This grotesque fusion of flesh and machine represents crude mechanization of dead tissue through the Kadu parasite. Deadliness is extreme at 9 out of 10. That propeller spins at lethal speeds, capable of dismembering victims in seconds. The creature charges with terrifying speed, and the propeller's reach means maintaining distance is crucial. Unlike most bioweapons, Sturm's weapon is constantly active. There's no attack pattern, no cooldown, no safe moment to approach. Get close, get shredded. The industrial buzzing provides psychological horror that announces its presence long before visual contact. Resilience shows weakness compared to other Kadu creations, scoring only 6 out of 10. The propeller engine is a mechanical device that can jam or break. The body, while enhanced by the Kadu, is still fundamentally dead tissue animated by parasitic control, not living tissue with active healing. Sufficient damage disrupts the parasite's coordination. The engine itself becomes a critical weak point. Scientific realism gets a 3 out of 10. Internal combustion engines require fuel, air, and ignition systems. Control mechanism challenges. Connecting dead tissue to mechanical systems requires sophisticated interfaces between organic and mechanical systems. Gyroscopic effects from the spinning propeller would make direction changes difficult. Thermal issues. Engines generate enormous waste heat that would cook surrounding tissue. Sturm lands in D tier as a creative concept that ignores mechanical realities. Dead tissue animation via parasite is theoretically possible, but propeller integration is not. The Resident Evil franchise succeeds as horror precisely because it blends scientific plausibility with fantastic escalation. The most effective monsters, Lisa Trevor, Nemesis, the Licker, work because they're grounded in real biological principles pushed to extremes. Plant 42, Uroboros, Birkin Stage 5 fail because they ignore fundamental physics. They're video game bosses, not plausible threats. What makes this analysis disturbing is that we're already developing the technologies that could create the S tier and A tier monsters. CRISPR gene editing, viral vector therapy, parasitic behavioral modification research, these aren't science fiction anymore. They're current medical and military research projects. The real nightmare isn't the monsters themselves, it's the realization that the line between impossible and not yet achieved grows thinner every year. The Resident Evil franchise may be fiction, but the science behind the best monsters is increasingly factual. Sleep well, and remember, the most effective bioweapons are the ones that could actually exist.